morning, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. And I started sharing just for a moment before the service that whenever I come to do these speaking engagements, I don't actually prepare like I would when I work in the corporate world. I actually give myself the space and the grace just to let whatever's going to come through me, come through me. And when I was called to say, what are you going to talk about today? I'm like, it's Halloween, let's go into the darkness. So I have been praying about it this week, and as I was looking, I'm a clinical therapist by trade, so I decided to go in and share what happens in my own darkness. You know, darkness, the place that I am ashamed of, I'm scared of, the traumas that have happened to me that I never learned to put into words, that while I push them away, they still come out in my behaviors. And I'm like, no, I don't want anyone to see this. Kind of like I became an emotional hoarder in my heart. And what I can tell you from being on the journey of discovering how I bring peace to my own mind and joy to my own heart, it's what brings me to my soul. And I realize in my own darkness from traumas, what happened with me is that I had a lot of issues with safety. I never really felt safe, and I learned to adapt and adjust to make sure other people were comfortable, make sure other people were happy, make sure other people were gonna like me, see if I could be loved. But it was in that adaptation that I created a lot of darkness in my life. And the darkness came because I would literally abandon what is good, right, and true from my journey of why my soul's here to evolve for the comfort of others. And in that, doing that, no matter what was happening in my life, I was getting further and further away from my own soul. So my mind starts to chatter and starts to yell at me, something's off, Jenny. My heart starts to lose the joy, and depression and anxiety start to rise in me. It's the stuff that most of us don't want to share with each other or talk about. Yet in some ways, as a therapist, I've discovered we all do it. And knowing, as a therapist, that's pretty much what I do on a daily basis, is I walk into other people's darkness with them. And here's the deal about darkness. There's always beauty and gems, the truth of you to be discovered in there. It's kind of like when people always say, oh, you just need to love yourself more. And people are like, what does that mean? It means go into your darkness and love all of you. Not just the sides you'd like other people to see, or not just the sides that you think are the best parts of you, but the parts of you that had to adapt and adjust to survive. And all of the experiences that most of us didn't grow up learning how to, speak the language of the heart and to let go and release all of the experiences that we had. That's why I kind of thought I was a hoarder. Like if you came into my heart, there's all these things like, Jenny, what are you holding on to this for? And look behind there's such gems that you hid away or you forgot about because you have been adapting and adjusting for others. So as I was adapting and adjusting for others, you know what happened? I was really good at attracting narcissists and manipulators and con artists and people who betrayed me. And as I learned to still and feel safe in my own self, I realized that was a gift from the Creator because I had been betraying myself to connect with others. Like, oh, if I can adapt and adjust that, you calm down, I'm gonna feel safe, or I can make you like me, or maybe if I just do this person will love me and then they won't abandon me, they won't leave, and I'll finally be grounded, I'll finally be safe. But none of that ever worked. Because when people actually did come along and were really kind and liked me and loved me, they weren't loving me, they were loving the version of me I'd created that I thought was going to keep me safe, that I thought would get people to like me, that I thought would get people to love me. So when actual love came at me, I never believed it. Not deeply. It's not like I would say that to any of you, like, yeah, I'm not really good at receiving, because I'm actually betraying myself on a daily basis because that's what worked for me for a little while. So I learned to go in and love that person that I created, because part of that was created because I needed it in the moment. We all will do things when we're in deep fear or we feel so disconnected to adapt or adjust, and learning to love and bring her in and hold her and say, it's okay that I love you and I like you now. But that's not always, I bet most of you would say, the easiest experience to go and do. But the more I would say, okay, be still, and I would let go and forgive. So I wanted to give you practical. If you've met me, let's show you what practically works. So across the board, I've been going in and helping in schools and doing the clinical practice. And it doesn't matter what demographic you've come from. I look at it like people's stress thermometers are really high right now. And basically, because we've been through a pandemic, we're not through it. So it's not like we've had time to have resilience enough to just feel that space of stillness unless we practice that as our spirituality every day. In our political divisions, people stress that we're just at that space. And I looked at it like, all right, God kept sending me people betraying me, so. And just when I learned to set boundaries and I'm like, hey, I'm a worthy person too, just like you are. Hey, I can be liked for who I am. Hey, if you don't like my light, because if I'm shining truth and you're out of sync, you're off your path into the weeds and I irritate you, I'm not going to adapt or adjust that anymore. So as I stood in this truth and gone in and clearing out all of this darkness, and it still comes in, these people kept showing up, but they were my gift. Because Jenny, are you going to betray yourself today, or are you going to stay in your truth? Even if I make them uncomfortable, even if all of us feel unsafe in that moment, are you going to stay with your soul today, no matter what comes at you? And the more I practiced that, and God kept sending me people to practice with, the more that I felt safe. And then I realized, other things that happened in my life, like I've created wealth and lost it all twice. The first time, because I had surrounded myself with people who liked my finances, not me. And because I will overgive as part of my darkness, as part of my codependency, because I don't think you'll really like me, so I just keep giving to you, because then you keep coming back. I mean, if every time you saw me, I gave you 10 grand, you're like, I like that lady. But more of my gifts are like, I can sit with you in your darkness and like, hey, Jenny, I've been off in the weeds and I created all this toxicity within me. Let me dump that on you. Okay, great. And then you feel better for a while, but now I've got to go deal with all that toxic, because I would take that on and then they go create, and that just kept. So when I finally said no, as part of how I'm built and honoring my own gifts, do you think they were happy? No, of course they were angry. So I had to stand and know. So I love when it works out in synchronicity that the word today was protected, that of course I'm protected. Because I wasn't really, although I felt really lonely and really unsafe, it wasn't because of anything you were doing, it's because I had lost touch with me, with the divine that lives in me. I was missing that connection. So here's what, so as I lost all that money, it was such a gift. Because all of those people who were around me just for money, or just for me overgiving whatever, my energy, my time, my whatever, they all went away. Like, what a gift. So I could sit with, oh wait, I need to set boundaries. I need to love myself, because no matter what anybody else did, it wasn't going to work. Because that's not what I was seeking. I'm seeking my soul and expecting you to help me find it. And in those days that I said, nope, I'm going in there, and I'm gonna sit in my darkness and see what I've done and love her, because she was just trying to survive around people who were unsafe and people who hadn't learned how to take care of their own pain, so the hurt people. They just kept passing it, and I said, enough, I'm gonna stop with me. So that's all I can do in this world, is make sure that I stay connected, so that when I connect with you, I'm not passing it on. I can just be that little light that might light yours again. And that's enough, right? So in the world with all of our stress thermometers up, I see it as our gift to go in and sit in that darkness, because when stress is too high, all of our darkness comes to the forefront, whether we like it or not. No matter how much you try to stop it, it just kind of spills out. I've seen it a lot. I don't know if you'll admit it, but it happens. So I wanted to give you something practical to do. So when all that darkness comes, you can look and see. Like the other thing that happened is I lost all my money again. I had to have 8 surgeries in 2 years of my life that I wasn't able to work. But what a gift, because now I value my body so much more than I did, the vessel and how it heals and the amazing gifts that it is just to have health. And same thing that my codependency, all the people that were taking advantage of the parts of me that I hadn't learned to love enough yet, they went away again. So it gave me a restart button of my boundaries. And knowing just because I set boundaries doesn't mean people aren't going to test them. So honoring, saying, oh, thanks, I'm going to hold that boundary today, and not spend a bit of energy being upset, because maybe they came, that's God's gift to say, look how far you've come, Jenny, from doing and sitting in darkness. So would you like a little darkness thing that I do all the time for myself? So I give you permission. And I'm going to tell you, because the neurology side of myself, I'll tell you a little bit about why it works, that I want you to sit in quiet and physically write. Don't type it. I want you to physically write the nastiest, the most vicious, the most vile letter you have ever written in your entire life. I want you to go into your darkness. Like, you might start it like, Dear COVID, or dear political divide, dear whatever's happening, like what you really want to say, that part of you that you push down, that you repress, that you don't want to talk about, and just like get it out, like swear like a drunken sailor in there. I want to be so nasty that if anyone saw it, it'd probably be the most humiliating thing that you've ever experienced. Like, because here's the deal. That's the emotional hoarding, right? Get it out. You needed a place to get it out. This is the safe place to do it. And the way that our brain works, because we keep going over it whether we want to or not, so when you write it, you actually slow down your brain enough to see what's been happening in there. You might know it because you hear it, but you're slowing down to say enough. That today I choose to release the darkness that no longer serves me. Because darkness comes to teach. Like, narcissists came into my life to teach me I'm worthy. And I didn't do great at my lessons for a long time. And then I figured it out. Oh, as the more worthy I am, the easier it is to hold those boundaries. Because they were my gift to show me, hey, Jenny, go feel worthy. Did you do it yet? Did you do it? But in the meantime, I held all this anger and all this hurt and all this trauma about having people who were narcissists in my life. So I needed to get it out, right? Write it out. And then I want you to start noticing what's coming out in your letter. So you'll notice maybe you have a theme of being disrespected. So then I sit in stillness with my darkness. Why am I always am I respecting myself? Am I respecting the God in me? Am I? So what happens, this is the way I look at it, take it or leave it, that emotions are energy in motion. So they're the energy that flows through us, that they teach us wisdom. Once we really understand, like for me in my darkness, I had to learn those boundaries. Once I get that that's what it is, then you can release how difficult the lesson was. We don't have to hold on to that part. We need to have energy and move it out. So you might see disrespect, you might see unworthiness, you might see rage. So many people, it's obvious as a therapist to see that we have so much unexpressed rage in us because nobody teaches us how to get rid of it in a safe way in general. Like, you don't go to school and say, today's our lessons on unexpressed rage. So this is a great way to get it out. Get it out. We all have it. It's part of, and so it doesn't slip out in other ways. So get it out. So are we ready to get weird? I always say that with my clients. Are you ready to get weird with me? Not only are you going to write, because you might have done this before, like, oh, I've already written the angry letter. Well, I'm sure you probably have other anger in there just from watching TV or just listening to the news. But let's get weird. Once you see, like, okay, I'm just going to pick one, like disrespect, I want you to put it on a 3x5 card, or you can do it with the letter, it doesn't matter. When I learned this in a wisdom school, they gave us wiffle ball bats and had us beat the heck out of being disrespected, or beat the heck out of whatever that common theme that keeps showing up in your life. Because here's the deal. People pass on disrespect because they haven't learned to respect themselves. But I'm gonna stop that with me, because if I don't, my darkness comes out all the time in ways I didn't mean it to. So now I'm gonna stop that disrespect with me, and get it out. Because the only ways that we really get toxic energy out is our voice. So as you know, you're using your voice to write the letter, but you can feel that vibration. We get it out with our sweat, so that's oftentimes why people will go exercise and it actually feels better. You get it out through your tears. I don't know if you know this, but whenever you cry from physical or emotional pain, you actually put it under a microscope. You can Google it now. But in grad school, I'm old enough, we didn't have Google. You can actually see pain chemicals in the tears of physical or emotional pain. Not joyful tears, not being out in the wind, not whatever, all the reasons we cry. Onions, that's our body's way. That's why you feel better after a good cry. And people told us not to cry or not to scream, not to yell. But you watch little kids, they immediately know how to do it. And they shake. Have you ever noticed a kid gets so mad they shake? Or your dog might get so mad it shakes, but we hold it all in. So this letter gives you permission to start yelling at it, to start crying, to start, I don't care if you jump up and down on it, you can spit it, whatever it is, get it out, because it's in you. And you can release it. And I promise you, you'll feel better if you actually do it and give yourself permission to finally let go and get it out. So you don't have to do it in a wisdom school with other people. And so I can't say who, but there was an NFL player next to me. So you see, like, I'm 5'1", and he's a big dude. I had no idea how angry I was when we did this. And so I kind of got lost in my rage, like with the wiffle blah blah. And so afterwards, he was like, "Hey, little one, I'm never upsetting you." Because I didn't realize how angry I was, because I got really good at holding mine in. But it was coming out in other ways of not respecting myself, not hearing my soul, not honoring my soul, not walking my path, not being my light, dimming myself down. All of those things because I didn't want that other side of me to come out. So you write it. Here's the other thing. So once you're done with it, I don't want anyone to see this, really, because this is your darkness. You don't want people to know about this. This is yours. But as you get rid of it for you, you get rid of it for us. Because now you're not slipping out with that, all of us, it's just human. Our stress thermometers go up, and before you know it, whatever behavior, like we freak out or we shut down or we walk out, whatever we do when our darkness gets too high, when our stress levels get too high, your stress thermometer is going to be much lower, and you're going to be able to be present with the person in front of you. You're going to be able to connect with that person in front of you. You're going to be able to love on that person in front of you instead of your stress thermometer being here. Now it's here. So yell, scream, cry, get it out. And in the Native American tradition, if you have a safe place, I'd want you to burn it. And I used to do seminars where, as part of the seminar, people had figured out what's going on in them as part of this process, and they'd come up in front of the room, and let's say for me, I'd be burning disrespect, because I no longer want disrespect in my life, which means I have to set boundaries, which means I have to respect myself. I have to look at all the ways that I need to love on myself, so I'm not looking out here, because it's already in here. I got to go find it through all my emotional hoarding. Like, I don't need that. It's in there. Now, how do I honor it? How do I respect it? Because we all have this beautiful light of God in us. And how do we take exquisite care of it? So let me clear that out. And as people would come up, as you burn it, I've noticed over and over that if you really mean it, you're really done, it burns really fast. But if there's part of you that's still holding on to it, it takes a while to burn. You have to keep lighting it, like, okay, I'm going, and no judgment of it, just sitting with, why am I still holding on? And I love that Native American tradition because you're transferring the energy, right? You see the solid form of what it did to you just evaporate, and then plant it by a tree. Because the nitrates now, it'll help you grow. And from my darkness, I've helped so many other people learn to set boundaries in their life. But I couldn't do it authentically until I did it for me. Because now I know the struggles and I feel the difference. And when you're going through something and somebody's already been through it, and you feel that connection of, oh gosh, they get it. They get it. So I thank having to go through all of that, because now I can sit with other people in no fear of the darkness that they're in, because I know they'll come out of it. I can see it. So I therefore have no judgment of it. But it doesn't mean that I don't have to lower my stress thermometer and take exquisite care of me. So it's one way to release the darkness that exists in us all. I can feel dark by just putting on the news for an hour, and I'm like, enough, I gotta go get rid of it. But here's the next thing. Once you do that, if you actually do it and mean it, you're gonna be exhausted, which I celebrate because it means you got it out. Something moved out of you. And then the next day, you fill up what I call your joy tank. Like your car has a gas tank, you've got a joy tank. And when your joy tank's filled, I don't know if you notice this, but when you're joyful, your mind stops chattering. It gets quieter. So you have a clear mind, a joyful heart. That's who we're always seeking to be. That's when we're closest to God. So filling up your joy tank, and whatever that means for you, I always ask people, like, if I were to give you all the money in the world, let's take money out of this. So you've paid off everything for everyone, you've given to charity, it just keeps coming. So you've got money for everything. I also give you a suitcase, a magical suitcase of time, because people always say, I don't have time for that. Well, here you go. Here's the month you need to study whatever or to travel there. So if you had all the money and all the time, and I am the founding member of the I'm Not Weird Club, so if you'd like, I'll email you a card. So, because people say, I can't do that. People will think I'm weird. Well, you now are a card-carrying member. I'll induct you all today of the I'm Not Weird Club, because if it brings you joy, it's not weird. Other people don't have to understand it. That's just fine. So if you had all the time, all the money, and nobody's going to think you're weird, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your life? What's overflowing your heart so your mind quiets, so that you get in touch with your soul, which brings you immediately on your path of where you're meant to be and out of the weeds? What do you do to fill you up? So plan, like actually sit and figure out what that is. And the other thing I always remind people is, and this town's kind of good at it, that what would you love to do as a kid? So if you love to color, go get, or order the 64 Crayola box that you wanted to have as a kid and you coveted, get that again. Whatever it is, like do something. Like I had a client and she's 60-something and she said, I love to climb trees. I'm like, go climb it. And she's like, are you gonna pay for my broken hip? And I'm like, no. But to make a long story short, she got back to me and had gone out with her little grandson and said, there's a climbable tree. And he climbed and she climbed with him. And she was like, it was the best day ever. Because it was safe, it wasn't like really high up. And she's like, I forgot that feeling of what it was like to be a kid again. And my grandson thought I was the cat's meow. So it was a great connection between them both just by being joyous. Does it make sense? So when people say, go love yourself, I think that's part of how we do it. We go into our darkness and say, enough. Enough of these experiences, these traumas, these things that we all know that how we're hurting each other, get it out of you. And it lowers that stress thermometer. And then take that time to allow yourself to fill back up. And the last thing I'll remind you is the minute that you get pretty good at this, you're going to be challenged and challenged. Like, do you mean it? Do you mean it? Did you do it? And so when those challenges come, when I get past my irritation, I sit with, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for giving me these people to see how much I value my soul and my heart and my clear mind. So today, I wish you all the nastiest, most vicious, vile letter that you could, and nobody gets to see, so that it clears out any of the emotional hoarding that might have happened, that you didn't know what to do with it. Get rid of it. Burn it away, watch it go, and then fill that beautiful heart with joy. So thank you for your time today, and may we all find that joy to connect together again.